But, it wasn't a waste of money.
No.
I did my part.
I did my part too.
So, our classic movie of the week was Starship Troopers.
Yes, because if any of you have been on Twitter over the last couple of weeks, you've probably seen a lot of the discord around this movie, the
Right.
debates,
Is,
and
is it
and
pro-fascist? Is it anti-fascist? Is it satire? Is it smart enough to be satire?
yeah, yeah. Are the bugs communists? Yeah,
Were the bugs right?
yeah. Yeah,
Was the meteor an inside job?
yeah, yeah. Yes. Did the bugs attack first? Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, Ninja says so. The movie that is purposely made not be an adaptation of the book.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk about the whole satire angle.
Yes.
Paul Verhoeven has said that, from what I understand, is that this is supposed to be a parody of fascism.
Hmm.
I contend that if you were to take out the crazy propaganda videos,
Hmm.
this is just a straightforward military sci-fi movie.
It is. Yeah. Um, i- and you could almost view it like like a kind of like a pro-war propaganda movie. Um,
Yeah,
like it dawned on me like this could almost be like okay, so. Uh, I don't know if the name Audie Murphy, if you've ever heard that name before, if anyone of our audience knows who Audie Murphy was.
that name is familiar, but I don't know why it's familiar.
He was the most decorated, at least the most decorated U.S. soldier during World War
Oh,
II.
okay.
And then after the war, he became an actor.
Right.
Eh,
So
yeah,
unlike John Wayne, who got famous for, pretending to be people who actually fought in the war.
yeah, yeah. Audie Murphy actually fought in the war. Yeah, and he starred in a movie playing himself called To Hell and Back.
Hmm.
Starship Troopers could almost be Johnny Rico's story with a movie about Johnny Rico with Johnny Rico playing himself.
Yeah. Yeah. That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And like, since I haven't actually read the book that this is based on, I
Mhm.
can't really comment on how good of an adaptation is. I hear it's an awful adaptation.
Yeah, I've heard that too, and I haven't read it either. So yeah, I know one of the aspects from the book that they didn't do in this movie was that in the book they were wearing like powered suits of armor, sort of like the Spartans in Halo.
Yeah, a lot of people love Starship Troopers a lot. Everyone from Aliens to StarCraft to Halo. Like heck, we saw these big plasma bolts being launched from the planet by the bugs, I was thinking, oh, yeah, it's those plasma cannons from the Covenant tanks from Halo.
Yeah.
And StarCraft just outright ripped off the propaganda videos from this video or from this movie.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think the thing with Verhoeven is that he's always very like tongue in cheek with all of his movies, especially his sci-fi movies. I mean, if you look at especially RoboCop, I
Right.
mean, yeah, he puts in a lot of like different allegorical stuff and very satirical stuff in there too.
I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that might be part of why there's such a debate around this one is that one thing I kind of is that you could totally miss whatever satire point he's making, which maybe if I watched it again, I would get more of a strong taste of satire.
Hmm.
But I think that if I had just been if I had not heard for decades that this was a satire movie, I would probably just take it to be a science fiction movie set in a harsher universe where they believed in corporal punishment.
Yeah, and that was kind of how I took it the first time I watched it. Although I was 12 years old when I first watched this, so you know.
Yeah, and this was my first time watching it at all. So,
Oh, really? Well,
yep, I've said it before. If it had boobs, violence, or blood, I probably didn't get to see it unless a friend of took pity on me in college or something.
okay.
And this has all three.
Yeah. Yes.
But so I guess I'm going to say is that I'm going to put aside the question of is this satire because
Yeah.
not enough data, and I think that I'd almost argue that where this fails as satire is that you can totally just take it as straightforward value and enjoy it and not think too critically about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he if he's supposed to, if like he's trying to satirize fascism with this movie, he has made his fascists far too human and likable.
Yeah. Well. The other aspect of it too is that all of the human characters in the movie, they have no idea that they're living in this supposed, fascist authoritarian government.
Heck, when we think about it, we don't know what life is like for the average person. We know that the average person can't vote unless they get their military service in,
Right.
but that isn't entirely without historical precedent.
No, 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 it isn't. Yeah. Yeah,
Eh,
there've been plenty of civilizations throughout history that required military service in order to vote. Yeah, I think Israel does actually.
yeah, right, you have a lot of countries where you have to do 2 years of service of some sort.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, Israel does that. But and like Rico's parents seem to be well off, and
mhm,
they aren't acting like they're, you know, trod upon. Like they actually, don't want their son to join the military because they're
yeah,
worried about him. It's like if you thought you had to get into the military to have a worthwhile life, you wouldn't be trying to stop your son from doing it.
right. Yeah,
But so again, like I'm gonna
yeah.
can the talk because
Okay, yeah,
yeah, let's can the politics and get into the movie
yeah.
itself because
Okay, yeah,
again, I just don't have enough data to make um, a meaningful contribution to how good of an adaptation is this and how satirical is this.
yeah,
I'm almost willing to call this a Barbie situation where they accidentally proved the other side,
yeah,
where they accidentally bolster the other side if that's what they were after.
yeah,
But so the movie actually opens up with one of those propaganda bits where you
mhm.
find out that the humans have been at war with the is it called the arachnids? Is that
I think yeah, yeah, arachnids. Yeah,
yeah a group of space bugs um, who launch asteroids to colonize planets.
yeah, yeah, and then we cut to the invasion of their homeworld by the humans,
Hmm.
and it goes horribly wrong. You know,
Yes,
they they act like they're storming the beaches of Normandy when in reality it's more like Vietnam.
uh, it's like the Gallipoli
Yeah, yeah,
campaign.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then yeah, so it's being filmed in this, the for the where there were propaganda news, and then the reporter gets killed, and then and we get our first look at Johnny Rico, man of action, and then he gets wounded and uh, presumed dead, but then but we're not entirely sure, and then we cut to the year prior when uh, Johnny is a senior in high school in Buenos Aires and he's in class with his girlfriend Denise Richards, Carmen, and then Dizzy, the redhead, and then Michael Ironside's their teacher, and he's basically telling them how violence is the only course of action, and you have to you know use the show of force and da da da, and yeah.
Yep. You also have an interesting look of Rue McClanahan is one of their teachers who
Oh yeah,
who has them. who has them. What do you call it?
Dissecting.
Yeah, dissecting one of the captured alien bugs.
Yeah, and then Carmen loses her lunch. Yeah, that was pretty funny. Like he's Johnny Rico. He's like pulling out
Yeah,
all the organs, pulling out the
I
intestines, and he's
don't think he was even wearing gloves.
no, he wasn't.
And like that was actually a pretty effective way to have like, to kind of explain the aliens and their psychology because you have Rue over there going like, oh yeah, you might think that we're so evolved because of our brains, but if you look at the bugs, they don't fear death, they don't have psychosis and da 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 da. Da.
Yeah,
And and so they're all about to graduate from college, or was it high school or college? I couldn't.
high school. Yeah,
Okay. I was a little bit thrown off because all these, well, it's like you hire 20 somethings to play high schoolers all the time. So it's,
right. Yeah, yeah,
but, they, uh, Denise becomes, or Carmen, played by Denise Richards,
yeah.
becomes a pilot. And so Johnny Rico decides to join the jump infantry because his grades don't really, he has pretty bad grades.
Yeah. His math score was like 35%.
Yeah, that's not good.
No. Well, and then there was also his friend Neil Patrick Harris. I can't remember what
Yeah.
his
Carl
Carl
Jenkins.
Carl
He,
Jenkins. Yeah.
he is literally a psychic.
So yes, and he sort of reminded me of Ben Shapiro in this movie.
Yeah, yeah. He definitely came off as kind of what kind of hit me as I was watching it was that he would have been Ryan Reynolds if this movie had been made 20 years later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then he goes into military intelligence because he has psychic abilities.
Yes, they don't really touch on a whole lot in this movie, which is
No, they
interesting.
don't. Yeah, I think they touch on it they touch on it in the book.
Right, probably gets into more detail in the book, and probably I'm sure with the various sequels they've come out with since then, which I believe were all straight to video because this movie was kind of a bomb for the budget.
Mhm.
Um, Probably came out more there. Everything I've ever heard about the sequels is just stick to the movie.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. Yeah. Um, although what's interesting is one of them was directed by Phil Tippett.
Oh, okay. So that one would probably at least have good creature effects.
Yeah. Um, but yeah,
Oh, for those who don't know, Phil Tippett did the stop motion animation for like the AT-ATs in Star Wars and stuff like that,
oh yeah, amongst many other movies.
amongst many others. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and but yeah, so and the movie was written by Ed Neumeyer, who also wrote RoboCop.
Okay, that fits.
Yeah. So yeah, so they all join the military, and then Johnny he goes to boot camp, and of course Dizzy is there as well because Dizzy has a crush on Johnny.
Yep. She joined the jump infantry just to follow him.
Yep. And the boot camp goes pretty well for Johnny at first. He makes friends with Gary Busey's kid.
Yep. As Clancy Brown yells at them and
Yeah,
beats them
yeah.
up. So one thing I thought was kind of interesting in this movie is that medical technology is significantly ahead of what it is today.
Hmm.
So I think that's part of why they allow such extreme corporal punishment at the boot camp. Like Clancy Brown breaks a guy's arm and the bone is sticking out, but you cut to him later and he's just in line getting chow with everybody else. He has this blue liquid around his arm,
Yeah, yeah.
like a little healing capsule.
Yeah, and yeah, there's a scene where they're doing knife throwing, and Busey's like, "Why do we have to know this stuff? Why do we have to know how to throw a knife? Bugs, the bugs, and everything." And he's like, "All right, put your hand on the
Yeah,
wall."
we're gonna be launching missiles anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right, put your hand on the wall, and he puts his hand on the wall, and then Clancy Brown chucks the knife and goes right in with his
Yeah,
hand through the wall.
yeah. Like try pushing the button now,
Yeah,
or something along those lines.
yeah.
Uh, And by the way, the fact that we're laughing about this kind of shows that like it's very much in the tone of the movie to have this because like
Oh yeah.
it's in a very violent boot camp.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and then Johnny becomes a squad leader or platoon leader, and
Mhm.
everything seems to go in right for him. And then there's a friendly fire incident that he exacerbated, and uh, during their first live fire drill.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. One soldier gets killed, the other one gets kicked out, and so they decide to give him some lashes, 10 lashes.
Yep, as punishment.
Yeah,
And he's feeling depressed, and he's going to leave because he feels like he got someone killed, and everything's bad. Then the aliens launch a meteor that hits Buenos Aires, wiping it from the map.
yeah, yeah, and so Johnny decides to stay in the infantry. And well, he was about to quit. He quits because of because he got a soldier killed, and on top of that, Carmen sends him a dear John letter telling him, well, I'm going to focus on my career and not on
It's not me, it's you.
yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah,
it's not you, it's me.
yeah, and of course, she's got a pretty boy co-pilot.
Actually played by a guy from Dawson's Creek, apparently. I kept thinking he looked familiar, but he wasn't. But I know what Dawson's Creek is.
Okay, that makes sense. Um, well, all the actors in this movie could have been in like Melrose Place or Beverly Hills
Uh,
90210.
was it Dawson's Creek or Melrose Place? I always get those mixed up, but
Yeah,
he
it was
was
something
in one
like
of
that.
those shows.
Yeah. But yeah. So now, in the words of Saruman the White, to war.
Uh, I'm thinking of the bit from Futurama where they're parodying this show, where it's
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
you could, we can just leave the military right away, right? Well, sure, unless war were declared.
Yeah,
What does that siren mean? War were declared.
yeah, yeah. Well, the other part too I really like was when Clancy Brown's talking to the commanding officer of the base, and he says, "He's like, well, I want to go and fight." And it's like, "No, you're a drill sergeant. You can't." He said, "Well, but I could always." Like, the only way you're going to see combat is if you bust yourself down to private.
And later on, we run into him, and he identifies himself as a private.
Yep. Yeah.
um, yeah, so we've now caught up to where the movie began. They have their their Tripoli, their I said it right earlier.
Gallipoli.
Gallipoli, thank you. They have
Yeah.
their Gallipoli moment, have to retreat in disorder. And one thing that I thought was kind of interesting was that one of the things where this seems like it's less of a fascist state and more of a militaristic state, and that's like
Mhm.
those are different, is that they do have the what seems to be the chief executive of the military, or like the chief general.
Yeah.
He gets replaced very peacefully, all
Yeah.
things considered.
Yeah.
He
He went
he
full
just he, he
demeanor.
just immediately accepts responsibility, steps aside, and his replacement comes up and says, and she says, we need to plan this out better. We need new tactics.
Yes. Yeah. They need a new strategy, and yeah. So they kind of go like to go back to Vietnam. They just start carpet
Yeah,
bombing the bugs, and then just go in and clean up.
yeah. And so then the rest of the movie from there is Rico's military career. He has his moments of doubt as he sees the death around him,
Hmm.
but he eventually becomes hardened, and he kind of becomes his drill instructor.
Right. Yeah. Well. Yeah. He definitely starts to becoming the Michael Ironside, because they
Yeah,
go into his unit, and he even repeats all of his sayings. He said,
yeah,
everybody fights, no one quits, and he said, if you don't fight, I'll shoot you myself. And
right. Yeah, he becomes a hardened military man as all of his friends slowly die around him.
yes, and including Dizzy, who he hooked up with right before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think that I think that we don't necessarily want to talk about the ending in too much detail,
Right. Yeah.
because if you haven't seen the movie, then it's worth a watch.
Right.
Let's talk about the special effects a little bit, because
Oh
uh,
yeah.
I think they have held up shockingly well for a CGI heavy movie that came out in what, 99?
97.
97, yeah. So like
Yeah.
this is before episode 1 came out, and that set a new bar for CGI effects. But
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
what really impressed me so much was you can see one of the soldier bugs here, because they had various types of bugs. They had like smaller beetles that seemed like they were the worker cased.
Hmm.
You had these huge hard-backed beetles that spat plasma and fire everywhere.
Yeah.
And they were pretty well integrated. But like like the biggest thing is you have these bullet sponge the soldier bugs
Yeah.
uh, that I wonder if they knew about these at the time. That having vertical jaws like that is actually incredibly unusual for insects.
Oh.
But one of the few examples of it was various types of Cretaceous ants
Hmm.
called. Actually, is that the right one? Let's see here. Yeah, it's like that, like where like the jaw, instead of going side to side like most ants, would actually like go back and press the prey against the head.
Huh. Neat.
Yes, I don't know if they knew about these at the time, but yeah, there's another good picture of it. Um, said here's a
Here's a good picture of it.
different picture of it. Oh, okay. I did the thing I do sometimes where I copy the image instead of the link to the image.
Ah.
There we go. Yeah. So it's like I wonder if that was inspired by that.
Yeah.
But the thing I noticed the most was, okay, so it was one thing in 1997 to have a CGI model, right?
Right.
Like there'd been enough of it, like things like Jurassic Park. What impressed me about this was one, just how many of these bugs they could render at once and not have them still moving smoothly.
Yeah.
But two, how destructible the bugs were. Like
Yeah.
when they got shot, they were losing body parts in realistic ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Their legs and yeah, torsos were being blown apart everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and the actors all did a really good job. When you know that they were just pointing empty guns at a blue screen or a
Yeah.
green screen, uh, like they all acted very. Like you could tell that things were made with a lower polygon count than they would be today, but they did it well.
Yeah. The effects in the CGI hold up extremely well, and I would say better than the movies that have been coming out over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, like the cocaine bear wasn't the best looking CGI model, but you understand why it was a CGI model. But
Mhm.
this was cooler.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And another little fun little fact: a lot of the outdoor scenes, like a lot of the battle scenes, were actually filmed right outside Casper, Wyoming.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see where that would look like Casper. Wait a minute. Okay, I forget. I know that the guy who played RoboCop was in Buckaroo Banzai. Was Paul Verhoeven involved with it in any way?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay, because I was almost wondering, is that a Buckaroo Banzai connection to have it in Wyoming?
I don't know.
So, I mean, it's a place for Danish royalty to give birth to twins, I guess. So,
Yeah. Although Verhoeven was Dutch, but yeah,
yeah. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
yeah,
I was making connections that didn't exist.
yeah,
Uh, the spaceships themselves also looked. That again, I feel like the Halo franchise owes them some money.
yes, yeah, yeah. The ships, looked like. I mean, I don't know if they if they were CGI or if they were miniatures. I guess they were
Uh,
CGI.
I think that no, I think they were miniatures because now you mentioned it, there was like a particular like way that things would move when they were miniatures on a green screen.
Okay.
I always thought of it as a uniquely Star Wars effect, but then I started seeing it in other movies as I expanded my horizons.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, so nice miniature work. I'm sure some of them were CGI, like maybe like when they were destroying them or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But
this was an expensive movie.
yeah, it
The,
was. Yeah.
and I can kind of see why at the time it had a very mixed reaction.
Yeah. I remember the first time I watched it with my brother, and I think we really didn't get it the
Hmm.
first time. We thought it was really dumb. We thought it was kind of, it seemed really cheesy
Hmm.
and hokey, and we thought the acting was really bad. But I think that was all kind of the point.
Right. Like there's like a lot of blood, a lot of violence. It's a very
Mhm.
dark movie,
Yeah,
and the little satirical elements. If you aren't hip to whatever satire they're trying to lay down in the movie
yeah,
and as a whole, it just comes across as a kind of, again, it's a dark military, it's a dark military sci-fi story that is occasionally interrupted by goofy commercials.
yeah, 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 and I think yeah, Verhoeven has a very different style that I think a lot of people, you either get it or you don't. And yeah, and that's sort of like the kind of goes with the mixed response that this movie had, and I think a lot of his other movies had too, like RoboCop and Total Recall, and even like Basic Instinct too.
I
Um,
didn't know that Basic Instinct was his.
yeah, and so is Showgirls.
Okay, yeah, that's a guy who casts a wide net. Yeesh.
Yeah, yeah. Um, uh, uh, he- I think he did one more movie after this, and then he went back to Europe to make movies.
Back to Europe in disgrace.
Yeah,
But maybe whatever one wants to say about my or my film literacy or whatever you want to call it. Um, I thought this was I just kind of enjoyed this. Like the melodrama actually worked for me because they did a good job setting things up so that, well, okay, like I'll compare it to Cocaine Bear. I cared much more about every character in this movie than anybody in Cocaine Bear.
yes, yeah, yeah. I did too. Yeah, and you know and I know like a lot of people, I was I was sad when Dizzy dies. You know,
Right. And I also wonder if part of it is just that since I'm more down for weird sci-fi. Like, yeah, the scene where a character was literally getting his brains sucked out by a straw by one of the aliens,
yeah,
or by Big Proboscis.
yeah,
It's like I could see people going, like, "The hell is this thing?" It's like,
yeah.
no, it's the Paul Verhoeven scene where he has a weird face where you have to have like some sort of prosthetic to make it happen, like in the scene in Total Recall where they're breathing Martian air.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I definitely recommend this movie. Unfortunately, it isn't streaming anywhere currently. I have it on Blu-ray, so that's how I was able to watch it.
And I rented it for like $4, so it isn't too expensive of a watch these days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's unfortunate that the movie didn't do very well when it came out in theaters because I would have liked to have seen like decent sequels to it.
Yep. I have a feeling that they have long since recouped their investment, though, just because this thing is definitely like you definitely hear people talk about it a lot.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
in fact, you almost wonder if the debate about it on Twitter might have been a little bit of bots by whoever owns the rights, going, you know, um, let's sell some digital copies and Blu-rays. Let's get people to think about this again.
Y-
It worked on me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Worked on me too. Yeah, and like, I don't know, go back and watch this movie again. Yeah,
I was like, I've never actually seen it. Let's see what the hubbub is about.
yeah. But although, and of course, to close it out, with a lot of people who like this movie, the consensus is, Dizzy is best girl and Carmen's a thought.
Yeah, yeah, I tend to agree.
Yeah.
Uh, Although I will give Carmen this. She had the decency to break up with him,
Yes.
even
Yeah.
if it was a Dear John letter. They were in space on in different parts of space, so she, she couldn't exactly wait until they happened to meet up again.
Right. Yeah. 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 But yeah. Yeah.
a fun movie with a lot of great actors putting in fun, over the top performances that is weirdly sincere, or like
Yes.
uh, like I should. Okay, so I say the movie takes itself seriously, or at least I don't know, like with the whole satire thing. I wonder if I'm just missing something. Like again, like I keep saying I don't want to get back around this, but I just keep thinking,
Yeah.
what am I missing? Like,
Yeah.
or is it just that I'm so used to military sci-fi like BattleTech that it's like, well, of course you'd have a future society built on war. At least these guys aren't fake samurai.
Yeah.
like 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 in BattleTech, where I'm partway through reading one of the books back in the day, and I realize, wait a second, this guy with the Japanese name, he's actually ethnically African. What? Yeah, just like one of the factions of BattleTech are a bunch of space weebs who just adopted a crazy version of Bushido because their leaders imposed it on them, and after 1,000 years or so, just was stuck.
Jeez. Oh man.
uh,
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Well.
so maybe this is just not crazy enough to to set off my alarm bells.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. But yeah. Well, I think we've talked these movies for as long as we can.